In 1998, the Spinal Cord Injury Research Program was created to acquire state money for research, as it sounds. The trust received more than $71 million in funding. That was until 2010, when the Patterson administration terminated the funding to the program to help balance the budget. Now a coalition of doctors, medical researchers, and patients are calling on Governor Cuomo and the state legislature to restore funding to the trust. Joining me now from New York City to talk more about this is David Carmel. He is the co-founder of the coalition New Yorkers to Cure Paralysis. David, it is good to see you.
Nice to be with you, Liz.
So this is an issue that I'm not so sure that many people are aware of. It was a very significant thing to have the bill passed into law to create this fund in 1998. It took a lot of lobbying to get there, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes, that's right, Liz. So in 1998, Paul Richter, who was a state trooper who was shot in the line of duty, teamed up with Christopher Reeve to link the leading cause of spinal cord injury, which is motor vehicle accidents, with its potential cure. And so they put a small surcharge on moving violations, which funded this research trust, and the program has been remarkably successful.
Can you elaborate on that? How so?
Well, it's brought concrete benefits to people today. So if you look what they're doing in Burke in Westchester, for example, they're using robotics to enable people to use their arms more effectively. So Nancy Lieberman, who's one of my co-founders, could only move her arms a couple of inches when she first started the rehab sessions. Now she's able to move her arms to write. It's enabled her to go back to a very successful law career, and that's been an enormous benefit to her.
How much funding is there out there? In other words, $71 million sounds like a lot of money, but when it comes to this kind of research, it's actually very intensive and very expensive. So how many funding streams are available? Does the federal government provide funding streams, for example? Does private funding streams, I'm sure, are significant? How much does it matter, this particular stream of money from the state?
It matters a lot because $71 million is what came from New York, and it brought a huge number of researchers to the state. People voted with their feet, and at least 40 researchers brought their entire research team and their laboratories to New York State. If the data is publicly available, just from NIH sources, the money was leveraged more than 2 to 1. And that doesn't even include private funding or other sources of federal funds. The Cornell study showed that every dollar in NIH funding provides $7 to the community. So we think the number is more like 1 to 15 or 1 to 20. A huge amount of funds that are coming into the state of New York for this research.
So all those folks who came here because they saw this dedicated funding stream that they thought would continue in perpetuity because it had a recurring revenue source, which is that surcharge that you mentioned on tickets,
Yeah.
right? What are they doing now?
That's right.
Those folks.
That's an interesting question. One of our researchers, Ben Cesaro up in Albany, had 2 postdocs who graduated this past spring. One of them stayed in New York State and is now working for a prominent biotech company here in New York. And another went to New Jersey. New Jersey decided to copy what we did here in New York State. They actually have a surcharge on moving violations in the state of New Jersey. And they've recreated the same program, but it's still going under Governor Christie. So we want to make sure New York was the leader here. We attracted researchers, and like I said, they'll vote with their feet by going elsewhere. New Jersey had a program, California had a program. 8 other states have tried to do exactly what we did here in New York.
And we're talking about jobs that are really sort of high on the income end, and you would want those sorts of people to stick around. I mean, similarly, I know that in your lobbying efforts, this time on the Cuomo administration and the legislature, you're arguing that this is exactly the sort of thing that the governor's seeking to promote through Startup New York, which is that program that offers tax-free for the period of up to a decade for businesses that come in and co-locate with universities, SUNY universities and CUNY, I should say.
Yeah, that's right, Liz. So what's amazing is not only the leverage that we've had in terms of the amount of money that's come into New York State, but it's been throughout the state. It's affected researchers in Rochester, Binghamton, Syracuse, Buffalo, Albany, Westchester, Long Island. It really has been across a number of research institutions. And like you said, these are well-paying jobs for very educated people. There's a lot of people who claim that if you do this program, there will be economic benefits and it will generate jobs. But we're one of the few programs that have actually proved it.
You've got a video that I'd actually like to take a brief look at. I encourage people to look at it themselves. It's on your website, and we'll give out the address in a moment. But it really does give a keen portrait and a poignant portrait of what we're talking about here. Let's take a listen.
The orthopedic surgeon told my wife about 4 o'clock in the morning that it doesn't look like your husband's going to walk again. She never told me. The doctors never told me. But I don't know how I would handle it if somebody told me it doesn't look like you're going to walk again. And what happened?
So that's Paul Richter, the state trooper that you mentioned earlier, David, in our talk. This is about a 5-minute video. You're in it too. I know this is a personal fight for you. And do you believe, in fact, that there at some point is going to be a cure, an actual cure for paralysis?
Yes. And what's ironic about this situation, Liz, is that we've actually proven that veterans, for example, at the Bronx VA, have increased their ability to do activities of daily living, being able to brush their teeth, being able to feed themselves. We have veterans that have actually increased their gait, so they've gotten out of their wheelchairs using this exoskeleton that funding was provided through the Spinal Cord Injury Research Program. You know, what's amazing is that we're actually in clinical trials. Accorda Therapeutics in Westchester is leading a phase 2 clinical trial this year. And at the time that this money could be most beneficial is when it's been taken away. And whether it's for Paul Richter or for the veterans that are coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan, or thousands of New Yorkers who have been injured, whether it's from motor vehicle accidents or gunshot wounds, this is providing real hope. And we're getting to the point where we're actually going to be able to bring the therapies from the bench to the bedside.
Well, that address where you can take a look at that video is newyorkerstocureparalysis.org. It's all one word, newyorkerstocureparalysis.org. David, I thank you very much for your time.
Liz, thanks for having me on.